Hello and welcome for the final time this week to Mustard Sport. This is Pundits Predict, where we go off the fence to predict the Canaries' fortunes. And for the final time this week, joining me in the studio are EDP Chief Norwich City writer Paddy Davitt and the man behind Holtzmania.com, Matt Wallace. Gentlemen, hello.
Hi. Hi, Michael.
Straight in then, shall we? We should all be over this by now, but Paul Lambert, former Norwich City manager, returns to Carrow Road with Aston Villa on Saturday. It's a Saturday lunchtime kickoff, don't forget. Paddy, we should be over it by now. It just always feels like Norwich need a big performance when Lambo's back in town.
Yeah, I would agree. Particularly the last two games, the League Cup tie, if my memory serves, and I don't think I've still got over that game down here with Gabi Agbognlahor. That moment when that final whistle blew, I think there was a fair few in that stadium, me included, felt this might be beyond them, because in the context of those, I think there was two games left at that point. Villa had climbed above them. Norwich were teetering on that bottom three, weren't they? And the nature of that game, you know, to play as they had done and then basically get undone in such a cruel manner. And I don't want to see it again. I'm frankly sick of that man celebrating as he has done on the last two visits. So for that reason alone, let's hope history doesn't repeat itself.
Yeah, you'd like to think the players would remember that occasion, wouldn't you?
I would, yeah. And I drew a parallel on a podcast actually a bit earlier in the week in terms of what Tottenham said. It was clear that their motivation was the fact they hadn't managed to get the better of City in 3 League and Cup games last season. You would like to think Chris Hughton and his coaching staff might be just going around a few people this week in the build-up and just saying, remember how you felt when that final whistle went and you'd been beaten 2-1. Remember how you felt when effectively you'd been embarrassed in the Capital One that night. You know, just store those thoughts away and then bring them out at 12:45 on Saturday.
I could wheel you into the dressing room for the pre-match team talk, I think, Pat. I think it would go off a treat. Matt, Aston Villa are a funny old team at the moment. They haven't actually picked up a point since they won at Arsenal on the opening day. It's Jore Akore, I think I've got that right, is out for 9 months with a knee injury, and I suppose they had looked like they were getting it together at the end of last season.
I still think they are, to be honest. I mean, I know the results haven't been great this season. They had a very tough start to the season. And the performances they put in against Liverpool and Chelsea could have won both games. They were very good. Less so against Newcastle. But I think so far they're still showing they're a very good side who, as you would expect from a Paul Lambert team, attack very well. They've done very well to keep hold of Christian Benteke. He is absolutely lethal at the moment. And around him, they've built a team which plays to his strengths and can get goals elsewhere. Gabi Agbognlahor has been in very good form.
He likes playing Norwich, doesn't he?
Certainly does. He potentially deserved an England call-up for the last round. Vyman around him as well. I mean, they've got some good players going forward, and I still think they're a very good side.
Benteke's scored more goals than anyone else, I think, in the calendar year. Struggling for clean sheets, though, as you'd expect maybe from a Paul Lambert side. Now, gents, we asked for your starting 11s for the game on Saturday, Norwich v Villa. Matt, here's yours. Do you want to take us through it?
A couple of changes to how we've been recently. First of all, I'd put Martin Olsen in at left back. I don't think Garrido's had the best start to the season, and I think he's just a little bit more solid. When you're going up against someone with the pace and strength of Agbognlahor down the flanks, I think he would be a better option. But going forward, I've made a few changes. Redmond, as good as he's been, is hot and cold, and he's still worth remembering he's only 19. He's not going to be great every game. Pilkington, I think, has that little bit more end product at the moment. I think it's worth getting him a start. And in central midfield, I think our 3 best players are the ones there, Alex Tettey, Leroy Fair and Johnny Howson. I think they all offer something a bit different. I think Tettey is, in the appearances he's had this season, a couple off the bench and 1 start, very tidy with the ball. He's got forward quite well. He's a bit more athletic than Bradley Johnson. He covers a bit more ground. I think when you've got a team which is as good attacking as Villa is, you want someone with that little bit more about him, and I think Tettey does that. And Howson, I think, was unlucky to be dropped. I think he had a very good first few games. And I think when he drives forward around players like Snodgrass and Van Wolfswinkel, he is a very good threat in the final third. I think they're our best combination of central midfielders, which is yet to be tried. And I think it needs a change.
And when you lose with a pretty poor performance, there's no real argument for not changing it, is there, I suppose? All right then, Paddy, let's have a look at your your starting 11. Take us through this motley crew.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head there, Michael. The nature of the non-performance almost at Tottenham, I think he has to make changes. There's no justification for going with those lads again, because whatever we've said, and we've discussed it earlier in the week on the shows about maybe where they've got it wrong in terms of their approach or the mindset, the players he entrusted didn't perform. They didn't individually come up to the mark. So with that in mind, I think he does need to shake it up. Olsen for me is a no-brainer. I think mainly because the pace that Villa have down the flanks, Vyman and Bonlahor, they were devastating at times in the corresponding fixture last season. So I think Norwich need to be switched on down the flanks. Martin obviously doesn't give you that pace, but he's a very good footballer. He's a very intelligent footballer, and I think it's going to be a day where it might be more about in the fullback positions what they do in defensive aspects rather than bombing forward. So Olsen for me is a must. Other than that, I'm just looking at maybe a couple of changes in forward areas. Down that left-hand side again, as good as Nathan Redmond has been in flashes, I think in the system that Houghton wants, he wants his wide players to be good defensively as well as going forward. That's a key requisite in a Houghton system, and I think we'd all agree that's not Nathan Redmond at the minute. He might grow into that, but he's a very young man, and also I think there might be a debate now for maybe just dipping him out of the firing line. He has started most of the games. That's a lot of responsibility on a young man's shoulders, and I think Anthony Pilkington now he's had his injury problems, but he's come back. He's played for Ireland as well. He wasn't involved really. Came on off the bench Saturday, so there shouldn't be any issues with his fitness. And he's a very good footballer. And he's got that bit more experience than Redmond. So I think I would bring Pilkington back in. And then for me, maybe the key to all of this is the 10, the false 10 that Chris Houghton is alluding to, that really almost makes whatever system he wants to play work for me. Because as was proved with Almander at White Hart Lane, it didn't work. Van Wolfswinkel becomes too isolated. Almander isn't a midfielder, but he was almost pressed into an auxiliary midfielder shift, and the upshot is there's no real get-out ball. They just kept getting pinned back, and they need to have some athleticism and a potent goal threat. And for me, Hooper can play that role. There was just glimpses, I thought, in pre-season prior to his injury that was the way maybe Chris Houghton was looking at it. It was, I think, the Panathinaikos game. They actually played the two of them, and I think Hooper got injured, didn't he, that day? So you just got the sense maybe that's how he's looking to do it. Maybe have Hooper off Van Wolfswinkel. So for me, they've got nothing to lose because Tottenham was so poor that let's see if it works, and if it does click, then you've got goals in that side. Particularly if you can get Snodgrass and Pilkington further forward up the pitch to supply them as well. And just on a footnote, Farron Johnson need to be the Farron Johnson that produced against Southampton at Combe last time. If it's the Farron Johnson against Tottenham, it's going to be a long old day, I think.
Again, I think a lot of Norwich fans will be wanting to see Gary Hooper in action. Now he's back fully fit. Also, quite like to see Nathan Redmond in that point, that sort of number 10 role at some point. Maybe. Well,
this is the thing, and Matt, I wouldn't disagree with Matt as well. I think Howson could do that role, and we all know Wes on a good day, he's a link man as well. There's probably not a better link man than him when he's on it. But I just think now you've gone and got Hooper in. We've had to wait this long. Let's see what he's all about. Let's give him a chance.
Right. Well, there's our verdicts then, Mr. Houghton. I'm sure he'll have his own ideas. Let's have a key man. It can be either side, Villa or Norwich. Someone who you think is going to be the difference.
Aside from the Villa strikers, I think everyone knows about. I think a key player in Villa at the moment is Fabian Delph. He started every game this season, and he's been absolutely brilliant in central midfield. He is one of the league leaders in tackles, in interceptions. He is getting all over the pitch. He's fast, strong. He is proving to be the player that everyone thought he would be when Leeds sold him for £8 million a few years ago. He's had a very good start to the season, and if he isn't clamped down on, he has the potential to dictate the game again.
Yeah, very interesting. Pad?
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I thought he ran the show, although Bangalore got the headlines in the corresponding fixture. Delph was top draw that day. So conversely, for me, it's Leroy Fair. If he can get around him and dominate him, as along with Johnson, they dominate Schneiderline and Wanyama for the Saints, then you do nullify a lot of Villa's threat. Yes, we all know about that front three, but they need service, and that's where the likes of Delph and Westwood to a lesser extent come into play. So much like in the last home game, central area is going to be key. If Norwich can dominate that, then you have a good hope that they can go on in and get a positive result.
Brilliant. So predictions then, Pad?
you can only hope rather than expectation on the back of Spurs, but I'm going to say 2-1 City.
Okay. Matt?
I think there might be a bit of a reaction to what happened to Spurs. I'm not full of confidence yet. I'll go for a draw 1-1.
Okay, there we go, gents. Thank you for all your time this week.
Michael.
Much appreciated. Thank you all for watching. Now, don't forget, it's a lunchtime kickoff on Saturday, 12:45. I will be have live full coverage on pinkun.com and my post-match report from outside Carrow Road this week and in future with instant reaction from Chris Houghton and Paul Lambert. That will be at mustardtv.co.uk just a few hours after the final whistle. And come next week, we'll want your 3-word verdicts, 3 upfront verdicts on the action. Let's hope there's no temptation or need to swear this week. Until then, have fun, and we will see you on Monday. Bye for now.